those of you who have wondered why I still haven't watched the Clone Wars yet, this right here, this is why. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's Noms here. And, yeah, today we're going to be doing a little rant on, this article by Who Gives a Shit publisher. And it's by a girl called Marissa Martinelli. It says, the Star Wars prequels were a joke. Then came the Clone Wars. The series finale brings an undignified era to a dignified close. Oh boy. Alright, let's just do a little introduction about why that's wrong. See, when people think about the prequel era, at least the general consensus that I've come to see on the internet and in my everyday life, it's that while people don't necessarily like the prequel movies themselves, or maybe they like them and they think that they aren't very good movies, which, you know, either or is fine, I guess. But the one thing I think everyone does agree on is that the prequel era, as a moment in time, the hype surrounding the prequels, the extended content surrounding the prequels, the video games, books, this, that, blah, 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 that was fire. That was a very fun time looking back in my life. I remember the lead up to Revenge of the Sith. I couldn't, time could not have moved any slower because I was so excited. And make no mistake, those expectations were not only met, but surpassed. Revenge of the Sith kicked fucking ass. It was amazing. I adored it. And a lot of you adore it too. Anyway, so an undignified era. You're saying that the prequels weren't that's retarded. George Lucas made the prequels. I don't see how it's undignified. They were never a joke. They became internet memes over time. When they first came out, they were pretty much adored by a lot of people. Not as many as I thought, because again, I was, I didn't even know there was any hatred towards the prequels until, guess what? I hopped on YouTube and I was like, oh, there are people making parody trailers, and there are people making really shitty arguments in their videos regarding the prequels. And now there's hatred for them. They can all be traced back to a channel that I will not do them the dignity of naming. But you guys know which channel I'm talking about. Anyway, internet sheep followed suit, and now we got a big bandwagon. And then the journalists do follow the bandwagons too on the internet. Now we got, articles like this shit stain. Anyway, granted, there are a few exceptions in amongst the internet chatter, people with very unique perspectives that I've come to see, and I've honestly liked. It's refreshing to see some refreshing takes on the prequels, to be perfectly honest, instead of just the lowest common denominator of argumentation. Anyway, so again, I don't know what you mean by undignified era. That's retarded. And then it says it brings it to a dignified close. You're telling me that 2000... Well, first off, if you've been keeping up, the Star Wars didn't... Well, I guess she's talking about the prequel era, but I was going to go on to say that Disney, it didn't end with Revenge of the Sith. It ended in 2019 with the reject of Skywalker, the rise of fucking terrible writing, and the last shit stain by Rian Johnson. Anyway, so, I get, a dignified close. What does that mean? You're saying it did justice to the prequels? Anyway, look, we're going to read this, and, yeah, I'm going to try not to lose it. But yeah, bear in mind, I haven't seen the Clone Wars, and everyone's been bugging me to bloody see it. I don't doubt that it's fantastic. I hate myself for not watching them, but I will eventually fucking watch them, so give me a break. There's a very good reason why I haven't watched them yet. Anyway, let us proceed by reading this article of horse shit. Right. And shout out to my Discord for sharing this to me on the channel suggestions page. I appreciate it very much. Midichlorians, clunky dialogue, intergalactic trade disputes, that electrifying John Williams theme with all the chanting, but also Jar Jar Binks. Okay, well, he didn't really say why those were bad. Just saying that's I guess that's what people dislike about the movies. The only thing that's that I think is even, justifiable in that regard is the clunky dialogue. I can kind of see the argument there, but in regards to Jar Jar, there are plenty of movies have characters you don't like or you even hate. But I love Jar Jar. Jar Jar's my boy. So, you can't say that Jar Jar Binks by default was, I hate the argument against Jar Jar. I think it's retarded. Anyway, the legacy of the Star Wars prequel trilogy is littered with missteps and missed opportunities. Missed opportunities? What the fuck are you talking about? Again, whatever. Instead of the good man seduced by the dark side we were promised, the movies gave us a precocious messiah. What? Precocious? I can't pronounce that word. Precocious messiah with a bowl cut who grows into a deeply troubled teen and then barely gets a few heroics in before he gets encased in famous black armor. Alright, well, look. Here's what's wrong with that. Like, you said we were promised by the good man seduced by the dark side. If you don't think Anakin was a good guy, you're fucking deluded, man. There's a reason why he cast Jake Lloyd and why he asked Jake Lloyd to portray Anakin in the way that he did. He started off as a sweet, hopeful slave boy who wanted to see the stars and wanted to come back and free slaves. He then turns into this frustrated teen who has been taken from his mother, stripped of all attachment to anyone, and only holds the memories of those he held closest, dearest. That being his mother, the first, the most, natural attachment I suppose a person could have, and the memories of that lovely girl he met when he was back in Watto's shop, who turned out to be royalty, mind you, and looks like Natalie Portman, so, I imagine that would stick in one's mind. He then finds said mother, who is dying, who dies in his arms, and then lashes out in a fit of rage and mercilessly wipes out everyone who had anything even remotely to do with her passing. He then marries said girl, and then has the same premonitions that he had of his mother dying for her. And then that's a long story, but that's that's a good man turning to the dark side for the most, I could say, sympathetic of reasons, because that's a story right there. I don't know what the fuck you're telling me. So, and not only that, it's what the creator fucking chose to do. He said that's the story. Darth Vader was always meant to be a tragic character, and this is the way he chose to tell it. There's nothing wrong with that, just by a creator choosing to do that. You call that a missed opportunity? Well, maybe you can write your own fucking fan fiction then. Because that's the story we got. You got to judge it on its own grounds, not what we could have gotten. Anyway, despite remarkable achievements in special effects, costuming, and cinematography, the prequel era is best remembered for a cartoon rabbit and a cringeworthy speech about sand. Yeah, thanks, internet. You wonder why my Revenge of the Prequels fucking series exists, because idiots don't know what the fuck they're talking about and choose to embellish on worthless crap when talking about those movies, just as a quick jab at them to appease the very shallow-minded demographic of the Star Wars community that'll be like, oh look, he said it, he said the sand quote. yeah, those guys are fucking idiots. You got Nostalgia Critic, an idiot. You got Cosmonaut, fucking idiot. Chris Stockman. Chris is I like Chris, but he still was retarded when it came to the prequels. And Star Wars Only is another one. I Had Everything is another one. Anyway, videos I've all done on these people, by the way. You should go check them out. This week, Star Wars The Clone Wars, the animated series that was cancelled and then revived by Disney after an improbable years-long fan campaign to bring it back. Didn't Disney, we say it was cancelled and then revived by Disney. People were pissed off because Disney cancelled it in the first place. So I don't think that's anything to be celebrated about. They said, I remember when the announcement was made, it was hashtag Clone Wars saved. It's like, what the fuck? Like, okay, Clone Wars saved. You tell me it wasn't good to begin with? Like, I'm pretty sure George Lucas and Dave Filoni, they accrued the mass audience for the Clone Wars before Disney, I guess, resurrected from the dead. Thankfully, they still kept Filoni in creative control, as far as I know anyway, because the reports of the final season have been pretty good from everyone I've seen who loves the Clone Wars. I really cannot wait to watch it, guys, but anyway, we'll get to that. Anyway, so it offers the Clone Wars, having been finished and revived, offered a different set of words and images to remember that era by. Though it was launched in 2008 with a goofy movie of its own, the worst reviewed theatrical release of the entire franchise. In fact, the Clone Wars got past its growing pains to become a vital bridge between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, paving over the movie's plot holes. Well, first off, I really don't see any plot holes between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, if it takes place between that time period. And based on what I've been told, it actually introduces more inconsistencies than actually fixes. Not that, you can get 95% of what's going on from Attack of the Clones if you just pay attention and piece together the details. Fleshing out characters who had been squandered. Oh, fuck yourself. Anakin was fine in Attack of the Clones and he was fine in Revenge of the Sith, alright? And taking the time to explore the nooks and crannies of George Lucas's richly imagined galaxy. Okay, well, that's something I am looking forward to seeing. I can't wait to see that. Anakin, now voiced by Matt Lanter, received some much-needed development. His willingness to turn on his order and commit atrocities made more tragic and believable by showing the deep-rooted corruption in the Republic and the Jedi during the war. Revenge of the Sith goes over the... what are you talking about? The freaking Phantom Menace goes over the corruption in the Republic. Attack of the Clones, the whole separatist movement was made because of the corruption in the Republic. Well, the Republic's bureaucratic bloatation, shall we call it. And people, thousands of star systems unsatisfied with the way of things. Count Dooku, who's a political idealist who rallies the separatists together. And Sidious, who's working through Dooku to accomplish this. Because he wants to start the war, and Sidious can't start it directly, so Count Dooku is his bridge to that side of the conflict. Anyway, look, you can get all of this from watching the movies. If you say, again, the reason I haven't watched the Clone Wars is because you don't need to watch the Clone Wars to find the prequel. The prequels hold up on their own. You don't need the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars is just dressing, okay? Anyway, but that's nothing against the Clone Wars. I fully believe it's a fantastic show. Based on what I've heard. I've got nothing against it whatsoever. Anyway. And the Jedi, the whole point of Revenge of the Sith, one of the big underlying themes of it was to show, and it's illustrated throughout the entire runtime, is to show that the Jedi and the Sith, from Anakin's point of view, based on the events that happen to him, the timeline it happens, and who does what, and the lines of dialogue that echo each other, which is a wink at the audience to, this is what's happening inside Anakin's mind. Anakin is seeing the Jedi and the Sith as very, very similar. It really blurs the line between the two. I mean, granted, the audience knows the difference, but this is from Anakin's perspective. And the whole point of Palpatine's plan is to lure Anakin to the dark side by showing them the fault of the Jedi. And, it all comes to a head when, I guess, Windu was about to break the Jedi code and just execute Palpatine, who was Anakin's friend. Anakin saw this, and then he acted. Anyway, and the rest happens. Star Wars The Clone Wars received only a truncated 6th season, but the launch of Disney Plus created an opportunity for supervising director Dave Filoni and his team to bring the show back to finally tip the dominoes they've spent years setting up. Well, that's good. That's good. It took them long enough, but yeah, I suppose Disney knows that they've got nothing else going for them at this point. Filoni wears many hats at Lucasfilm, including the literal cowboy hat he is rarely seen without. He has shepherded a number of TV projects at the company, including Star Wars Rebels, which I haven't seen and I look forward to watching one day, Forces of Destiny, haven't seen it, Star Wars Resistance, which I've heard is a dumpster fire, and The Mandalorian, which is okay at best, which also marked Filoni's live-action directorial debut. But his greatest contribution to the franchise has been his work on The Clone Wars. After directing several episodes of the acclaimed Avatar: The Last Airbender... Oh, really? He did that? How about that? The lifelong Star Wars fan was lured away from Nickelodeon by George Lucas and has since become a kind of Moses figure, making sense of the sometimes inscrutable tablets the franchise's creator would hand down from the mount. Okay, that's a weird analogy. Filoni says that when he questioned Lucas's idea to bring back Darth Maul, character last seen being cut in half and plummeting down a bottomless pit, Lucas told him, "You'll figure it out." Oh, so that was a George decision. Well, I did not know that. I still think, alright, well, that's one of the instances where I would disagree with George. I think you should leave him dead. But there was a lot of, I mean, I was perfectly fine with Maul getting cut in half, but there was a select a group of fans that wanted more from him, wanted to bring him back, and I guess maybe that's why George made the decision. But yeah, it's I don't know, it's questionable, and it's one of the decisions from George I'm not particularly fond of. Although I do look forward to seeing Sam Witwer's portrayal of Darth Maul as a voice actor. Sam Witwer's an OG, and I love The Force Unleashed. After Lucas stepped away, Filoni remained, using his other Disney-sanctioned series to sneak in some closure for the characters whose stories were cut short by the premature end of the Clone Wars. But with the 12-episode season that concluded on Monday, he finally got the chance to do it right. Okay. It's difficult to talk about the Clone Wars finale without also addressing the Bantha in the Room, The Rise of Skywalker, which similarly made its streaming debut on Monday for May the 4th. Yeah, I'm sure that broke Disney Plus in half. So many people wanted to watch that it crashed the system. That's a joke, by the way. I know barely anyone fucking watched it. These showstoppers sat side by side on Disney Plus. Fuck you! I haven't even seen the Clone Wars. Guarantee you more people were watching the Clone Wars. Each wrapping up a different era of the fuck you. The Skywalker saga wrapped up in 2005, and if I'm generous, I'll say it wrapped up in 2019 with the Clone Wars. If I'm being generous, because, I think it's pretty, Jay Filoni is the closest creative mind to George Lucas, so, I think it's, and apparently George approved, he gave the final season its approval, he was happy with it, which doesn't surprise me, because Dave Filoni and George are good friends, and they've worked. Again, I don't think anyone's worked closer with George, at least in the most recent years, than Dave Filoni, And I don't know what your perspective on canon is. My perspective on canon is canon should be judged as legitimate based on how authentic it is. And, if it comes from the creator's mind, it's authentic. If it's adopted by someone else, it's not authentic. If it's bought out by a company like Disney and handed off to the likes of J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson, it's definitely not fucking authentic. So, I don't really know how you could really consider that to be canon. But there are those of you out there who think legality, who is licensed to the IP should determine the canon. That's a fair perspective to have as well. Let's agree to disagree. Filoni, close working mind with George. I'll consider 2009 to be the official end of the Skywalker saga with the Clone Wars. Anyway. But certainly not with The Rise of Skywalker. That can go fuck itself. But where The Rise of Skywalker used hasty revisionism to get out of the corner The Last Jedi backed it into by bringing back a dead villain without bothering to explain how, by blaming a major backstory revelation on a technicality, by giving a beloved new character a perfunctory write-off. At least, wow. Marissa, I'm glad you addressed that at least. The Clone Wars has shown enormous respect for its often disrespectful predecessors, working with and around the prequel movies as much as possible instead of just hitting Control-Z every time things got inconvenient. Disrespected predecessors, excuse me. Okay, well, it's shown enormous respect. That's good. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. Okay, good. It respects the prequels. That's nice to hear. That's not to say it never messed with the canon. The series began by introducing a potential plot hole so big that you could drive a Star Destroyer through it, that Anakin Skywalker had an apprentice, Ahsoka Tano, voiced by Ashley Eckstein. And I'm very looking forward to watching episodes with Ahsoka. I've heard great things about the character. Who was never so much as mentioned in Revenge of the Sith, a bratty whippersnapper who eventually matures into a powerful warrior. She's the perfect foil to Anakin. Okay. Sharing his impulsivity and confidence. But with these traits tempered by a deep compassion for others, her fate became one of the central mysteries of the series during its original run. Ahsoka is the star of the Clone Wars final season. Though that fate is no longer in question, she reappears in the future. I know about that. So she's in Rebels too. So it was just how she ended up in Clone Wars was the mystery, as opposed to, the connective tissue between the Clone Wars and Rebels was the mystery. People knew she was alive. And even more recently, she was included in the voices of Jedi past, who speak to Rey in The Rise of Skywalker, which is, again, more retarded, because that means that There's a good chance she's dead because of that, so great job, Disney. A curious conclusion for the character, who, like her master, eventually becomes disillusioned by the Jedi. Ahsoka chose to walk away at the end of Clone Wars' 5th season, but returns in the 7th to help capture Darth Maul. Wow, thanks for the spoilers. I haven't watched this. You know, you could have put spoiler warning at the top. Anyway, their showcase this season was a triumph for Filoni. Ahsoka, a character he helped design from scratch, and Maul, whom he raised from the dead, in less capable hands. Their battle is in the show's 4-part finale, formatted as a kind of mini-movie. Might have felt like a kid playing with his action figures instead. It's a testament to how much the series has grown, with stunning lighting and animation, and a choreographed fight scene that features real actors, including the original Maul, Ray Park, using motion. Wow. Okay, that's cool. I'm glad. Well, that's fucking fantastic. I'm so glad that they if that isn't respect to the prequels, I don't know what is. Those 4 episodes don't just lead into Revenge of the Sith. The 2 stories actually overlap, with a snippet of dialogue repeated and Clone Wars characters walking into scenes right when the movie cut away, because we already know what's coming. Anakin's turned to the dark side, the Clone Wars executing their generals in Order 66. There's a dread that hangs over every scene. Eckstein and Witwer that are acting their hearts out, as is D. Bradley Baker, who voiced over all the clones in the series run, and somehow managed to give them all individual identities. In fact, there are only 3 actors in the very last episode other than Filoni himself, in a small part as a droid. But the most gutting parts of Victory and Death are the parts with no dialogue at all. The last 4 minutes are accompanied by Kevin Kinner's mournful Blade Runner aping score, and for fans who have followed this story for more than a decade, they are nothing short of astonishing. It's the ending that the Clone Wars always deserved, and a dignified close to an era of Star Wars that wasn't always so dignified. Okay, look, that's all well and good regarding the Clone Wars. And again, you could have maybe put a spoiler warning at the top of this fucking article, because that title is clickbait and you fucking know it. You know, it pissed me off to high heaven, and I wanted to read through this for my audience to show you where you were wrong in your assertions about the prequel era and how it pertains to, how it pertains to the Clone Wars, quote-unquote, saving it, or providing a dignified end for it. So, yeah, great job on the clickbait and the no spoiler warning. Fuck you. The Clone Wars blazed the trail for what came after it. The gritty violence of Rogue One, which I like Rogue One. I actually think it's a pretty good movie. The populism of The Last Jedi, the sensibilities and lore of The Mandalorian. That was how did that trailblaze The Mandalorian? That's after the OT, dummy. But the show's most impressive accomplishment is its redemption of a part of Star Wars canon that is often reduced to a joke. Yeah, and you've done nothing to fucking try and rectify that, so fuck you. Often reduced to a joke so that for a certain subset of fans, prequel era Star Wars is some of the best the franchise has to offer. The prequel era of Star Wars is what I think is the best era of the franchise. It has the most to offer in terms of lore and expanse and products for enjoyable products, I'd probably say, for the fan base. Not a Gungan whose tongue is caught in a power converter, but a clone cradling his brother in his arms as he breathes his last breath. Fuck you, that's a spoiler. And Maul wielding the dark. Thank you for telling me Maul gets the Darksaber. Ahsoka Tano standing in a graveyard of her own making. That's how you end an era. No, you end an era by sealing Darth Vader in his fucking suit while his wife dies after giving birth to his twins. The tragedy of Darth Vader comes full circle and is complete. So, yeah, I don't, you know, that's, if anyone granted, you know, the whole circumstances surrounding Padme's death is questionable, but you can't tell me that your fucking heart was bleeding when you saw Darth Vader's creation intercut with his own children being birthed into existence and his wife dying. The very wife he turned to the dark side to try and protect. That's a fucking tragedy right there. That was when the saga came to an end. If we're being generous, the Clone Wars was just the last hurrah for the prequel trilogy, the prequel era. And I'm glad it happened. But to say it provided a dignified ending for an undignified era is just fucking deluded. You're trying to appease an internet narrative that is a decade it's a decade it's been going on for a decade, and I'm sick to death of it, and it's over with, alright? No one believes that. You're full of shit. Happy the Clone Wars did well. I look forward to watching it one day, but go fuck yourself, Marissa Martinelli, whatever. You're a nobody. Fuck you. Anyway, that was the article. I don't know how this is going to go. I haven't done anomaly rants in a while, but I thought I should put some content out there. And I've been sitting on this article for a couple of days, and I was like, I might do this. I might go through it. But yeah, it really got under my skin. Just the clickbait title and the lack of any clarification or substance regarding her assumptions regarding the prequels. She just mentioned all of the internet bandwagging key talking points that don't hold up under a lens at all. And there are legitimate criticisms against the prequels. I'll never deny that. I never have denied that. But, if you want to point to Jar Jar and CGI and a fucking single line of dialogue out of context as like the problems with the movie, or why these movies are terrible, and you just, you are the lowest common denominator. Who the fuck does that? I know people get used to get chastised for speaking out against the prequels, but it's over and done with. The bullshit has come to a head. Like we get, those people who threw that mud at the prequels, that they hold no fucking water. They're idiots. We all know it. Even they know it. They're just hoping they can still get away with it, but as long as I'm here, they ain't getting away with shit. Anyway, thanks for listening to my rant. Hope you enjoyed this. I hope I'm getting better at this off-the-cuff kind of speaking. And there'll be more content coming soon. Quick thank you to my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your support, and your contributions mean the world to me. They really do. I'd like to thank my YouTube members. You guys are fantastic. All of you, the Star Killers, the Captain Prices, the Master Chiefs. Phenomenal people. All of you, I appreciate it. And don't forget to check out the channel's Discord server, which is where I found this very article. If you haven't joined the Discord yet, I highly suggest you do so. It's where you'll find news. It's where you can contact me. It's where you'll get notifications. And it's basically just a chat room for other followers of this channel, and we can all sort of collaborate and communicate and bounce ideas off each other, and just all in all have a fun time and have a laugh, which is, interacting with you guys is one of my favorite parts of doing this. So please join the Discord. I look forward to making more videos for you very soon. Hope to see you on the podcast next time it's on. And take care of yourselves. Bye for now.